Charles Maddox was born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio. His mother, Kathleen Maddox, was a 16-year-old runaway and alcoholic. She later married William Manson, giving Charles his last name, but the marriage was short-lived. Kathleen was often in trouble with the law, and Manson's early life was marked by neglect. At one point, his mother even tried to trade him for a pitcher of beer. He spent much of his early childhood in various homes and with relatives. By the age of 13, Manson had already committed his first crime, a robbery. He was soon placed in a reform school, where he experienced severe abuse. Throughout his teenage years and into adulthood, Manson continued his life of crime, including burglary, theft, and carjacking. He spent more time in institutions than out. In March 1967, Manson was released from prison. He moved to San Francisco during the Summer of Love, a time when the city was a hub for the counterculture movement. Manson began attracting a group of followers, primarily young women, who were disillusioned with society. He used a combination of charm, manipulation, and drugs to gain control over them. These followers would become known as the Manson Family. Manson preached a blend of pseudo-religious ideas and apocalyptic visions. He claimed to be the reincarnation of Jesus Christ and taught that a race war, which he called Helter Skelter, inspired by the Beatles' song, was imminent. He believed that the Manson family would survive this war by hiding in a secret underground city and would emerge to rule the new world. Manson had aspirations of becoming a musician and tried to integrate himself into the music scene. He befriended Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, who introduced Manson to various music industry contacts. But his music career never took off. In 1968, the Manson family moved to Spahn Ranch, an old movie set and horse ranch in the California desert. The ranch's owner, George Spahn, allowed them to stay in exchange for labor and the women's company. The family lived a communal lifestyle, engaging in various criminal activities such as auto theft and credit card fraud to support themselves. Manson maintained control over his followers through a combination of charisma, fear, and manipulation. By mid-1969, Manson was increasingly frustrated by his failed music career and perceived slights from the Hollywood elite. He believed that by committing brutal murders, he could incite the race war he had prophesied and prove his power. Initially, Manson had targeted the home of music producer Terry Melcher, who had snubbed him. However, by the time of the attack, Melcher had moved out and actress Sharon Tate and her husband, director Roman Polanski, were renting the house. On August 8 to 9, 1969, under Manson's orders, Charles Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian went to the house at 10050 Cielo Drive. Inside, they brutally murdered actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant, celebrity hairstylist Jay Sebring, coffee heiress Abigail Folger, writer Wojciech Frykowski, and Stephen Parent, who was visiting the property caretaker. The victims were stabbed and shot multiple times, and their blood was used to write messages on the walls. The next night, Manson himself led a group, including Watson, Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten, and Steve Clem Grogan, to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. The couple was tied up and savagely murdered. Messages such as "death to pigs" and "Helter Skelter," misspelled, were written in blood at the crime scene. The Manson family members were initially arrested on unrelated charges of auto theft. Susan Atkins, while in jail, boasted to fellow inmates about the Tate murders, which eventually led the authorities to connect the family to the killings. Investigators pieced together the evidence, including witness testimonies and physical evidence from the crime scenes. By December 1969, Manson and several family members were indicted for the Tate-LaBianca murders. The trial began in June 1970 and became one of the most publicized in American history. Manson's bizarre behavior, including carving an X into his forehead, later modified into a swastika, and the constant presence of his followers outside the courthouse, added to the spectacle. The prosecution, led by Vincent Bugliosi, presented a strong case showing Manson's control over his followers and their willingness to commit murder at his command. The defense argued that Manson was being scapegoated and that the family members acted independently. In January 1971, Manson and several of his followers were convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They were sentenced to death, but the sentences were commuted to life imprisonment when California abolished the death penalty in 1972. Manson spent the rest of his life in various California prisons. Despite being behind bars, he continued to attract a small group of loyal followers and remained a figure of fascination and fear in popular culture. Manson had several parole hearings over the years but was repeatedly denied release. He remained unrepentant for his crimes and continued to espouse his twisted beliefs. On November 19, 2017, Charles Manson died of natural causes at the age of 83 at a hospital in Bakersfield, California. The Manson family murders had a profound impact on American society, symbolizing the end of the 1960s counterculture movement and the dark side of the era's free love and anti-establishment sentiments. The story of Charles Manson and the family has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films, cementing their place in American cultural history. Manson himself became a symbol of ultimate evil and the dangers of charismatic leadership gone awry.